Hello and welcome, dear students. Today we are going to discuss the topic characteristics of hormones. The main objectives of today's lecture are to know about the hormones and their characteristics in general, to know about various endocrine glands and their secretions, to describe the functions of hormones, to briefly understand the process of hormone regulation, and finally to describe the characteristics of hormones. To begin with, let us first discuss the hormones and their characteristics in general. Hormones are the specialized chemical substances produced by endocrine cells that have specific stimulatory effects on the activities of different cells and are circulated through body fluids such as blood. Hormones are secreted by the endocrine glands in small amounts. The hormones are secreted directly into the blood and are transported throughout the body. They are chemical messengers that regulate the behavior of the target cells. Hormones serve as messengers controlling and coordinating activities throughout the body. Hormones are produced by animals and plants both, and they play a vital role in the proper functioning and coordination of different systems. Hormones maintain the homeostasis in the body as they are involved in regulation of many physiological activities of the body like fertility, body temperature, growth, thirst, appetite, etc. Hormones are involved in the process of communication over long distances between two endocrine glands or between an endocrine gland and target organs. In scientific terms, the hormones can be defined as the substances of low molecular weight, chemically heterogeneous, non-nutritive, and produced in little amounts directly into the blood and acts as intracellular signaling molecules, also known as messengers. Hormones can be classified according to their chemical nature, mechanism of action, nature of action, their effects, and stimulation of endocrine glands. On the basis of chemical nature, hormones are divided into 6 classes, which are amines, peptides, proteins, glycoproteins, steroids, and ecosanoids. Steroid hormones like estrogen, progesterone, serotonin, cortisol, and testosterone are made from cholesterol. Ecosanoids are lipid hormones made from lipids and kinds of fats. Amines like triiodothyronine, that is T3, and thyroxine, that is T4, are amino acid derivatives. Peptides, polypeptides, and proteins are peptide hormones and include TRH and vasopressin. Hormonal balance is vital for a healthy, disease-free body. The fluctuations in the hormone levels which occur naturally during different stages of development such as puberty, premenopause, menopause, and due to an unhealthy lifestyle cause disturbances in the hormone level, which in turn results in different disorders like infertility, hair thinning, irregular periods, hair loss, weight gain, weight loss, depression, anxiety, insomnia, fatigue, and other related problems. Dear students, some general characteristics of hormones are as: hormones are the chemical entities produced by special cells of endocrine glands. They are generally transported to the target cells, tissues, or organs via circulation. The hormones are usually species specific in their actions. Hormones are active in extremely little quantities. They are mostly water soluble. They have a low molecular weight and are destroyed after their actions. They usually activate target cells by forming hormone receptor complexes. They cannot be stored for a long time. Usually, they are synthesized and secreted during the time of requirement within the body. Chemically, hormones are heterogeneous substances. Hormones may be an amine, a peptide, a protein, or a steroid. Steroid hormones enter the cells and have their targets intracellular. Dear students, let's now discuss the different types of glands. A gland represents a cell, tissue, or organ responsible for secreting useful substances such as proteins, lipids, carbohydrates, or a mixture of all these substances. Generally, the glands are classified into the following categories. On the basis of the site of secretion, the glands are classified as exocrine glands. As represented in the given figure, the exocrine glands are the glands which release their secretions through ducts to the target site of action. These include salivary glands, sweat glands, lacrimal glands, sebaceous glands, mammary glands, intestinal glands, etc. The substances released by the exocrine glands regulate essential functions of the body and maintain homeostasis. Next, the endocrine glands. The endocrine glands, including pituitary gland, thyroid gland, parathyroid gland, thymus, pineal gland, and adrenal gland, are the ductless glands which synthesize and release hormones into the bloodstream that carries them to the target organs. These hormones control a variety of important functions of the body like growth and development, reproduction, metabolism, and many other important functions. Another type of glands is the heterocrine glands. These are the glands having an exocrine and an endocrine part. The exocrine part releases its secretions by means of a duct, while as the endocrine part releases its secretions directly into the blood. Gonads and pancreas are the examples of heterocrine glands. On the basis of the mode of secretion as represented in the given figure, the glands are classified as merocrine glands. These glands release their secretions through the cell membrane while the cell contents remain intact, for example, goblet cells. The next one is the apocrine glands. In these glands, the secretion accumulates as secretory granules in the distal part of the cell, which then breaks down and the secretion is released. The examples are the mammary glands. Another set of gland is the holocrine glands. In these glands, the whole cell fills with a secretion which then breaks down and the secretion is released, for example, sebaceous glands. Dear students, let's now discuss about the functions of hormones. Hormones in general perform the following different functions which can be described as: first, the growth and development. Hormones perform an important role in maintaining the process of normal growth and development. The essential hormones involved in the process of development and growth are thyroid hormone, growth hormone, the sex steroids, insulin, and other growth factors. Thyroid hormones influence both growth and development. Growth hormone primarily regulates the overall growth of the body, and the sex steroids mainly regulate sexual development and behavior. Androgens, estrogens, growth hormone, thyroid hormone, and prolactin act as growth factors. The next function of hormones is the mineral and water metabolism. Aldosterone, parathyroid hormone, and vitamin D perform several primary functions in the process of ion regulation within the body. The hormone called vasopressin regulates water metabolism. Various other hormones like insulin, glucagon, catecholamines, thyroid hormone, and glucocorticoids exert secondary effects on water and electrolyte metabolism in the body. The next function is the production of energy, which is required by the body to perform many functions. The utilization of glucose and other fuels to generate energy is regulated by a number of different hormones. The hormones like catecholamines, growth hormone, testosterone, and cortisol are involved in inducing the breakdown of lipids and the hydrolysis of triglycerides into glycerol and free fatty acids. Moreover, the hormones like glucocorticoids, catecholamines, growth hormone, cortisol, and glucagon promote hyperglycemia, that is, more of the glucose in the body. The other function of the hormones is the cardiovascular functions. The hormones like catecholamines, thyroid hormone, mineralocorticoids, and sex steroids affect the cardiovascular health and functions. Catecholamines increase pulse, blood pressure, cardiac conduction velocity, and myocardial contractility. On the other hand, thyroid hormones are involved in maintaining processes like heart rate, stroke volume, peripheral vascular resistance, and cardiac contraction. Mineralocorticoids maintain fluid and sodium homeostasis, which is important within the cardiovascular system. The sex steroids perform essential roles in maintaining the cardiovascular health. Next function is that of the reproduction. Hormonal regulation is also very important for maintaining the normal reproductive process and behaviors. Hormones are essential for the production of ova and sperm from the gonads, and the anatomical function and behavioral development of males and females required for proper sexual reproduction. The hormones like FSH, LH are important for ovulation, that is the release of the ova. The sex steroids are involved in maintaining the essential functions involved in pregnancy and also for the process of sexual differentiation and development. Dear students, let's now discuss the process of hormone regulation. As hormones are the carriers of critical information, hence their secretions must be turned on and off accurately and precisely at the right time in order to maintain the homeostasis in the body. The hormones are responsible for regulating the body's internal temperature. In response to a stimulus from the outside, the conditions inside the hormones are altered. In living organisms, there must be some kind of a proper way of knowing when there is a need for a hormone to be secreted, how much it is required, and when that requirement has passed. In order to maintain the exact regulatory function of a hormone, the endocrine gland should receive constant feedback information about the state of the system being regulated, so that the hormone release can be adjusted properly. As far as the biological mechanisms are concerned, the positive and negative feedback are the known products of the molecular and physiological processes. Both of these feedbacks represent the most important control systems which are involved in the maintenance of body's homeostasis or the tendency of an organism to maintain balance and regulate its internal environment, as is illustrated in the given picture. The feedback circuits lie at the root of most of control mechanisms in physiology, mostly in the endocrine system. Negative feedback mechanism is way more common than the positive feedback mechanism. Without these important control feedbacks, an organism can lose the ability of self-regulation. In general, a feedback mechanism tends to either accelerate or inhibit a process. The positive feedback mechanism amplifies the original stimulus like that of the childbirth, while as the negative feedback mechanism slows it down, as in case of the regulation of glucose. In general, the positive feedback mechanism involves the following phases. First of all, a stimulus disturbs the originally controlled variables, and then the receptor detects that change. Then the information travels through the system's pathways towards the control center, and the control center determines the proper action and sends this information to the effector cell. And finally, the initial deviation is intensified. The negative feedback loop mechanism, which operates among most of the hormones, involves the following phases. First of all, the original signal state is disturbed by a stimulus from the outside, and then the receptors detect the change, and the information travels through the system pathway towards the control center. And after that, the control center determines the appropriate action. And finally, the equilibrium is restored by contracting the excessive production rate of that particular hormone. Dear students, let's now understand the general characteristics of hormones in detail. First, the chemical nature and classification of hormones. Chemically, the hormones can be categorized into following broad categories as is represented in the given figure. First, the lipid soluble hormones. These include steroid hormones. These hormones are derived from cholesterol. Each steroid hormone is unique due to the presence of different chemical groups attached at various sites on the four rings at the core of its structure. These small differences allow for a large diversity of functions. Thyroid hormones like T3 and T4. These hormones are synthesized by attaching iodine to the amino acid tyrosine. The presence of two benzene rings makes T3 or T4 molecule lipid soluble. T3 is the triiodothyronine and T4 is the thyroxine. Next group is the water soluble hormones. These include amine hormones. These hormones are synthesized by decarboxylation and modification of some of the amino acids. For example, the catecholamines epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine are synthesized by modifying the amino acid tyrosine. Similarly, serotonin and melatonin are derived from the amino acid tryptophan. Now, the peptide and protein hormones. These are the amino acid polymers. The smaller peptide hormones generally consist of chains of 3 to 49 amino acid residues, and the larger protein hormones consist of 50 to 200 amino acid residues. The examples of peptide hormones are the antidiuretic hormone and oxytocin. Protein hormones include human growth hormone and insulin. Dear students, let us now understand the hormonal action. The hormones are carried throughout the body by the blood. These hormones affect certain specific cells which respond to and have receptor sites for the given hormone. It represents a type of lock and key mechanism. If a hormone fits the receptor site, it will produce an effect, and if not, then there will be no reaction. All the cells having receptor sites for a given hormone make up the target tissue for that hormone. The target tissue may be localized in a single gland, organ, or it may be scattered throughout the body, affecting many areas. In general, hormones bring about their characteristic effects on the target cells by modifying their cellular activity. For instance, the protein hormones react with cell surface receptors, and the sequence of events resulting in hormonal action is relatively rapid. On the other hand, steroid hormones typically react with receptor sites inside a cell. This method is relatively slow because it involves synthesis of proteins. Now we will discuss the synthesis of hormones. Hormones are generally involved in a coordination of a series of physiological events, and their synthesis is determined at the genetic level. The synthesis of peptide hormones. The peptide hormones are synthesized by the method of translational process. A series of steps are actually involved in the transfer of information encoded in the polynucleotide language of DNA to the polyamino acid language of biologically active proteins or hormones. In the formation of polypeptide hormones, first of all, a parent molecule called prohormone is formed. The prohormone is then broken up to form hormone as a result of different post-translational chains. The synthesis of prohormone takes place in ribosomes. The prohormone is then extended at their amino terminus by a hydrophobic amino acid sequence called signal peptide or leader peptide. The signal peptide aids the prohormone to pass into the Golgi complex via endoplasmic reticulum. Finally, the prohormone is then converted into hormone with the help of enzymes. Now, the synthesis of non-peptide hormones. The synthesis of non-peptide hormones like thyroid hormones, adrenal medullary hormones, and steroid hormones involves the action of multiple enzymes. Thyroid and medullary hormones are basically derived from the amino acid tyrosine. All the steroid hormones are synthesized from the precursor cholesterol molecule. Synthesis of non-peptide hormones occurs within the cells from their precursor molecules by sequential actions of several enzymes. They are generally synthesized within mitochondria or endoplasmic reticulum. Finally, they are secreted either by exocytosis or by simple diffusion processes. Dear students, let us now discuss about the transport of hormones in the body. Most of the hormones after secretion are directly circulated into the bloodstream and reach the target organ via circulation or bound to a carrier protein. Sometimes hormones are transported through intracellular fluid, especially in paracrine secretion. Hormones are metabolically degraded after their action. Hormones are usually degraded in the liver and kidney and then excreted through urine. The hormones like peptide, amine, and protein hormones are generally water soluble, and most of them circulate freely. Growth hormones and some growth factors and all of lipophilic steroid hormones circulate bound to carrier proteins. The transport of hormones in the bound form extends the period of their availability and action by preventing their rapid clearance from plasma. By keeping some of the hormones from circulating in the free form, binding proteins diminish the magnitude while extending the duration of hormone action. In some cases, the binding proteins may facilitate hormone action, like in case of growth hormone. The binding proteins and cell receptors have an identical structure which facilitate hormone and receptor binding. Dear students, it was all about today's lecture. Hope you have understood it well. Goodbye. Thank you.